All right, hey y'all, I'm so excited to make this video because equations are literally my favorite thing to do in the world. So we are just going to start with 1 and 2-step equations, and tomorrow we're going to go into multi-step. But I promise if you stick with me, you will get this right, all right? So our objective for today is I will be able to solve 1 and 2-step equations, all right? So watch me work. So my first question says m minus 9 equals negative 13, right? I'm trying to figure out what can I plug in for m, or what value can m be to make this statement true. All right, I got to figure out what is m? What does that variable represent? What could go there? And the way we do it in algebra is we just do the inverse operation. So bear with me. So I say m minus 9 equals negative 13. All right, the last operation I said was minus 9. So I have to do the inverse of that. So instead of subtracting 9, I'm going to add 9 on both sides. So let me add 9 on both sides. And I have to do it on both sides. So it'll help you to draw a line, I call this my river, through the equal sign. So I'm adding 9 on both sides. So what happens is negative 9 plus 9, those just zero out, right? That cancels each other. RIP to that 9, RIP. So I'm left with m. M equals, and I know negative 13 plus 9 is negative 4. All right? So watch me check my answer. So m minus 9 equals negative 13, right? I found out that m equals negative 4. So negative 4 minus 9 equals negative 13. Negative 4 minus 9, keep, change, flip. So now I have negative 4 plus negative 9. Negative 13 equals negative 13. Check. I got that right. All right, let's look at number 2. R plus 2 equals 8. I got to figure out, okay, what could R be in order to make this equation true? What could it be? R plus 2 equals 8. Okay, so remember, whatever is the last operation I said, I'm just going to do the inverse of it. So R plus 2 equals 8. What I'm going to do now is, the last operation I said was plus 2, right? That was the last operation. I'm going to do the inverse of that. So the opposite of addition is subtraction. Subtract 2 on both sides. Whatever you do on one side, you have to do on the other. Remember when you're balancing equations in chemistry, it's kind of similar to that. So remember, 2 minus 2, that just zeroes out. We're trying to get rid of that. We're trying to isolate our variable. We're trying to get R by itself. So 8 minus 2 is 6. All right, let's check that. R plus 2 equals 8. If I plug in 6 for R, I get 6 plus 2. 6 plus 2 is 8. 8 equals 8. Check. All right, now over here. So we did addition, subtraction, and addition. So if I'm adding to a variable, I have to subtract. If I'm subtracting, I have to add. So let's see what happens if I have to multiply or divide. So negative 104 equals 8x. 8x side by side means multiply. This means 8 times x. Remember, the last operation you say, so I like to read my equation out loud. Okay, negative 104 equals 8 times x. The last operation I said was multiplication, so I'm going to do the inverse of that, which is division. So I draw my river. I know I have to divide by 8. This fraction line means divide. All right, that's how you want to write it when you are solving equations. You don't want to put your division sign. So 8 divided by 8, that becomes 1. So it kind of like RIP, it cancels out 2, right? That's the goal. We're trying to cancel it out. So we have x left on this side equals negative 104 divided by 8, which is negative 13. I used a calculator for that, y'all. And I knew it had to be a negative number. So let me check. Negative 104 equals 8x. Negative 104 equals 8 times negative 13. See how I put it in parentheses? Because I know side by side means multiply. So I put it in parentheses. So negative 104 equals negative 104. Check. Always check your answer. 4. Negative 6 equals b divided by 18. The last operation I said was division, so I know I have to multiply. So b divided by 18, okay, I'm going to have to multiply. And I put it off to the side like this. So multiply by 18 on both sides. This cancels out. RIP. So 18 times negative 6 is negative 108 equals b. And I can check that. Negative 6 equals b over 18. Negative 6 equals negative 108 over 18. Now I know negative 6 equals negative 108 divided by 18 is negative 6. I got it. All right. So your rule says isolate, which means to get alone. Isolate, like to sit in isolation. Isolate the variable by using the inverse operation. So whatever operation you say last when you read the equation out loud, do the opposite of it. Over here, I said m minus 9. Minus 9 was my last operation. So I'm going to do the opposite of minus 9, which is add 9. For number 2, r plus 2. Plus 2 was the last operation I said out loud, so I'm going to subtract 2. So that's one step. This is your one-step equations. I'm going to have a key up somewhere. I'll tell you where it is in the classroom, and I want you to figure out how to solve these, all right? And then go check your answer. So now we're moving on to two-step, all right? Two-step. Two-step is just very similar to one-step, but now you have 2 steps instead of 1 step. Ta-da! All right, so let's look at number 1. Remember, I said whatever operation you say last, you have to do the inverse of that operation. So watch me do number 1. Number 1 says 13 minus 3. Sorry, y'all, my back hurts, so I have to keep moving. Number 1 says 13 equals 3x minus 20. All right. What's the last thing I said? 13 equals 3 times x minus 20. Minus 20 was the last thing I said, right? It's the last operation I said. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the opposite of that, the inverse of that. The inverse of subtract 20 is add 20. And I'm going to add 20 right under the 20. I'm not going to put the add 20 under the 3x, all right? And I'm going to add 20 here. So 13 plus 20 is 33 equals 3x minus 20. And then I added that 20 to that 20 because I wanted to get rid of it. RIP to my 20s. And I'm left with 3x, right? So now I went from a 2-step to a 1-step. This looks familiar. We've done it previously. This is saying 33 equals 3 times x. To undo that, I'm going to divide by 3. So x equals 11. You can plug back in. 3 times 11 is 33 minus 20 is 13. All right, let's look at number 2. Number 2 looks a little weird, but remember, say it out loud, and the last thing you say, do the inverse of that. So let's look at this. X plus 5 divided by 3 equals 4. The last operation I said, x plus 5 divided by 3. Oh, the last thing I said was divide by 3, so I'm going to do the opposite of that. I'm going to multiply by 3. So times 3 times 3. This cancels out. All right, that's the goal from the beginning. We're trying to get rid of it. So I'm left with x plus 5 equals 4 times 3 is 12. All right, now I'm back to the 1-step. So now, last operation I say when I'm reading this, I'm going to do the opposite. X plus 5 equals 12. Subtract 5 on both sides. X equals 12 minus 5. I do my river, I'm sorry. 12 minus 5 is 7. And 7 plus 5 we know is 12, right? 12 divided by 3 is 4. Cool. I know my answer is right. Let's look at number 3. So x divided by 3 plus 2 equals negative 5. The last operation I said, x divided by 3 plus 2. Plus 2 was my last operation. I'm going to do the opposite of it. Draw my river. Instead of adding 2, I'm going to subtract 2. So x over 3, x divided by 3 is what's left. RIP to my 2's. I'm left with negative 5 minus 2, which I know is negative 7. All right. Use your calculator. Check me if you want to. So x divided by 3, my last operation I said. So I'm going to do the opposite of that. I'm going to multiply by 3. X equals negative 21. Negative 21 divided by 3, I know is negative 7. Negative 7 plus 2 is negative 5. Cool. Number 4, 10 minus 2x equals 6. All right, so this one's a little weird, right? So 10 minus 2x equals 6. So this one's weird because my x is in the back. It's not in the front, right? So it seems like the last operation I say is minus 2x. But I have to get rid of that constant first, right? I have to get rid of this first. So I can rewrite this as negative 2x plus 10 equals 6 to help me out. So now it looks familiar. Negative 2x plus 10 equals 6. The last operation I said was plus 10. So I know I'm going to subtract 10 on both sides. These two are the same equation. All right. It's the same thing. It's just written differently. Negative 2x equals 6 minus 10 is negative 4. Now negative 2 times x equals negative 4. Divide by negative 2. X equals 2. Negative 4 divided by negative 2 is 2. Let's test that. 10 minus 2x. 10 minus 2 times 2 equals 6. 10 minus 4 equals 6. 6 equals 6. All right, just wanted to check that for you. Cool. So I want you to try these 1, 2, 3 problems on your own. Check your answer. And then we're going to go back and we're going to see how we do it if we have fractions. All right. What do we do if we have fractions? So do that real quick. Pause the video and then come back for the fraction part. All right. So 2/3 n plus 4 equals negative 26. So 2/3 times n plus 4 equals negative 26. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 4, draw my river, and my last operation I said was plus 4, so I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides. So now I have 2/3 n equals negative 30, right? And so there's multiple ways you can do this problem right here, all right? So I'm going to show y'all a couple ways on this paper, and then you just choose the way you want. So here's the way I like to do it. Once I get to 2/3 n equals negative 30, I like to look at it as 2n over 3 equals negative 30. So 2n divided by 3 equals negative 30. So 2 times n divided by 3, last operation I said was divide by 3. So I'm going to multiply by 3 on both sides. So 2n equals negative 30 times 3 is negative 90. All right. 2 times n, to undo that, I have to do the opposite, right? So I'll divide by 2. N equals negative 45. So that's one way to do it. You can also do, that's the first way. The second way to do it, you can do 2/3 n equals negative 30. What you could do is, that's what I did there. Multiply both sides by 2/3. You can divide by 2/3, right? But when you do all this, this cancels. You're left with n equals negative 30. And remember, when you divide by a fraction, you have to multiply by the reciprocal. 3 over 2, I'm sorry. You have to multiply by the reciprocal. So n equals negative 30 over 1 times 3 over 2. N equals negative 30 times 3 is negative 90. 1 times 2 is 2. N equals negative 90 over 2. N equals negative 45. So that's two ways to do it, right? You can multiply by 3, then divide by 2, or you can divide by the fraction itself. Divide by the fraction itself, but remembering to multiply by the reciprocal. Remember, you divide by a fraction, the same thing as multiplying by a reciprocal. Do whichever way you like, all right? So let's do one more. So here we figured out that n equals negative 45. Cool. So let's look at this one, number 2. So 3 divided by 8n, 3/8 n plus 1 equals negative 25. The last operation I said was plus 1. Create my river. I now have to do the opposite. Subtract 1 on both sides. So 3/8 n equals negative 25 minus 1, negative 26. All right. I'm going to use the way that I've been doing. So this is the same thing as 3. So I can rewrite this as 3n over 8 equals negative 26. So 3 times n divided by 8, multiply by 8 on both sides. I'm going to use a calculator. So negative 26 times 8 is negative 208. So that cancels. So 3n equals negative 208. 3 times n, I do the opposite of times 3. I divide. Because remember, my goal is to get the variable by itself. So n equals 208 divided by 3. It's the fraction. So I can keep it as negative 208 divided by 3. All right, that's my answer. Now let's look at this one. So 4 plus 2/5 r equals -2. Just like in this one, when I rewrote it, so x is in the front, my variable was in the front, I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2/5 r plus 4 equals -2. All right. So 2/5 r plus 4 equals -2. Last operation I said was plus 4. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to subtract 4. 2/5, and I'm going to go ahead and write it as 2r divided by 5 equals -6. I can multiply by 5 on both sides because 2r divided by 5. Last thing I said was divide by 5. So I'm going to do the inverse, which is multiply by 5. That cancels. 2r equals -5 times 5 is -30. Divide by 2 on both sides. R equals -15. All right. So go ahead and try the rest of these by yourself. And then look at the answer that Miss A has posted up in the classroom. Cool. Have a good one.